Elizabeth and Danny, thank you for joining me this evening on Voice of Africa Radio, and you are welcome on this platform.
Well, thank you for inviting us, Adam. Very kind.
Thank you very much for having you in my studios to discuss this important issue. The report of the bill that is in Parliament now, the report and the third reading stage on the bill are to take place on Monday, which is today. The bill has its second reading debate on the 21st of October 2014. It was presented to Parliament on 11th of September 2014. The bill provides for a recall petition to be triggered if a member is sentenced to a prison term or is suspended from the House for at least 21 sitting days. If either occurred, the Speaker would give notice to petition officer, who in turn would give notice to parliamentary electors in the constituency. Elizabeth,
yes.
The recall of members of Parliament, the significance of it to the electorate.
Extremely significant. This has been a platform UKIP policy since the 2010 general election, and the UKIP policy was to have a recall whereby 20% of the electorate of the constituency could all sign a recall petition, and they could then have a recall and have an election to consider replacing their MP that they felt dissatisfied with. Thus, power was given to the hands of the electorate. Now, this Call of MPs bill, sponsored by Nick Clegg, is nothing like that at all. Basically, power resides in the hands of the criminal justice system to decide whether an MP should be subject to a prison sentence. And note, the bill doesn't actually give any length as to the prison sentence. I question, therefore, whether there will be a discretionary element. If there is a discretionary element, then the bill is doomed. Further, on top of that, the Speaker then has to decide whether if the MP has been suspended from the House for at least 21 days for sitting days or 28 days, as to whether to give notice to the petition officer, as you stated. So again, the power resides in the criminal justice system and in the Speaker. It doesn't reside in the electorate. And in fact, Zach Goldsmith was so frustrated by the structure of this bill that in fact he introduced his own amendments in October of this year, and his was even more radical than the UKIP policy. That is, he wanted 5% of the local electorate to be able to introduce a recall petition, and his bill was rejected. But interestingly enough, remember, Zach Goldsmith is a Conservative, and he's quite a favourite with us in UKIP. His amendments were defeated 340 to 160. 81% of Conservative MPs turned up to vote, and 55 voted against his amendments. 79% of the Labour MPs turned up, and 80% voted against his amendments. That is, 80% of Labour MPs voted against giving the electorate the power to decide the recall. The Lib Dems, who actually introduced the policy, 74 of their MPs turned up, and 90% of the Lib Dem MPs said no to Zach's amendment. So 90% of the Lib Dems said, no, we don't trust the electorate to make that decision. We want to control the process. It's a nonsense. It's just a farce.
Danny, recall of MPs by the power that we want to vest into the constituents, the people who elected the MPs, and if there is something going on that they think they don't want to be represented by such a the person that they vested their power in him, want him off, do you think that the electorate will get that mandate as Parliament is hearing or reading this bill to make it a law?
Well, I'm not sure whether they will or they won't. The Socialist Party has always been in favour of electing recallable delegates. That's people who've been delegated to go to democratic forums and put the views and the opinions of those who've delegated them to do so. As far as Parliament goes, I don't really see as this is essentially a working class issue. As far as I'm concerned, as a member of the working class, my main concern is to have a society whereby we no longer have to sell ourselves into wage slavery to earn a living. This is what's uppermost in my
But
mind.
you are electing somebody to represent you to say that, yes, I don't want Danny in my constituency to sell himself for wages. Therefore, if the person's conduct you deem not fit to representing you, is this the right time to have the mandate to say, yes,
I think that democratic power is absolutely essential. For the working class, for people like me who sell their mental and physical energies to an employer for a living, it's essential for us to have as much democratic power as possible. And yeah, I've got nothing against having the opportunity for voters to recall delegates, to recall their MP if they feel that their MP is not representing them, but. You see, as I see it, as our party sees it, the main issue is not the way that our wage slavery is organised. Our main issue is to get rid of our wage slavery. Well, so I'm kind of the wrong person to ask of this, because I'm not in the slightest bit interested in the ins and outs, the rigmarole of parliamentary procedure.
But if you are not interested in parliamentary procedure, you might as well not be interested in democratic process.
Well, you see, for me, democracy means, a democratic society means, to me, a situation where all socially relevant information is available to everybody.
So how do we attain that? How do we get that?
We have absolutely we're nowhere near that in the society. What we have a sham of democracy, where, I mean, one, if you was to ask, the average person in the street to explain capitalism and how it works, they wouldn't have a clue, because we're not educated. We're not informed about how capitalism works. We certainly don't know what goes on in the boardrooms. We don't know what goes on in the stock exchanges. We certainly don't know what goes on in government. So essentially what we do is that we vote on very, very limited information.
All right,
and that's not democracy.
Let me go to Elizabeth. I'll come back to you. Elizabeth,
yes,
Danny's opinion is he wants to see proper democratic process. That we vested our power in one person to represent us. We delegated somebody to represent us. But our conduct, his conduct, is not the reflector of our powers vested in him. That means we disagree. Majority of the people disagree with some of the MPs, what they do in Parliament. Therefore, we need the mandate, the power to say, hey, we vested our interest in you, we employed you. Therefore, we no longer wanted you to do what we asked you to do. You can come. But Danny is saying that process, he doesn't think we will ever get it. And would that be a proper democracy, as we are perceived to be democratic people, that we need to get it from the grassroots upwards?
Of course it's a proper expression of democracy. What's offered by this recall of MPs bill, sponsored by Nick Clegg, is merely the veneer of democracy. It's profoundly unsatisfying. It does not offer the electorate any more power over MPs than they now have.
Why?
Because, as I explained earlier, the recall of MPs bill, you can only, you, the electorate, cannot recall the MP. The MP will only be recalled if they are subjected to a prison sentence. It doesn't say the length of the prison sentence, so I question whether there may be some element of discretion. But
it has given a days, an amount of a certain period that
it's given 21 days for sitting days if you've been suspended, I presume, on a conduct issue. Again, it doesn't specify what the suspension is for, and I'm sure that's going to be subject to discretion. So basically, it's in the hands of the criminal justice system, and it's in the hands of the House of Commons. It's not in the hands of the electorate. For instance, we've got a situation where Eric Joyce MP, he's the Labour MP for Falkirk, he has been convicted of 3 criminal offences, 3 different occasions. He's been arrested 4 times, and yet he's still an MP. I don't know if his constituency members are happy with his behaviour. The process should make MPs more outwardly accountable to the voters and less dependent on party whips, but I don't think that this recall of MPs bill does that at all. It does not vest power in the electorate. It's not the electorate's decision. It's the criminal justice system, whether they decide that the MP should be subject to a prison sentence, and it's also the House of Commons, the Speaker, deciding what is to happen to an MP? Will the MP be suspended for the magical 21 sitting days? Will the MP be suspended for the magical 28 days? I consider that to be somewhat discretionary, and I just don't think it's appropriate. We're in a stage, we're in an unusual era at the moment where people are very, very dissatisfied with the current democratic system, such as it is. Voter turnout is at an all-time low. MPs are insulated from the electorate unless they've been jailed for 1 year. They're inviolable. People feel detached and remote from the political system. Many people feel the current political system is entirely irrelevant. And political party membership is also at an all-time low. And one way of curing this would be to give the electorate some power over their MPs.
Why do you think that electorates are no more interested? People are no more interested in political process or democratic process in this country?
Because they feel they've got no control. When you elect someone, or you elect a government, you get them in. There's nothing to tie them to the manifesto promises. They can do what the hell they like for 5 years. You can't remove them. This recall of MPs bill does not help the electorate. If you've got an MP who said, let's say for the sake of argument, I'm going to ensure that everyone here gets free tertiary education. He's gone round telling everyone that's going to be his manifesto platform, that's his party manifesto platform. Overnight, get into power, that's dumped. You can't then say to that MP, hang on here, you deliberately and knowingly misled us as to the feasibility of giving us free tertiary education. Well, you deliberately misled us. We're going to deliberately remove you. You don't have that power. They can do what they goddamn well like.
Well, Adam, let's come back to you. Danny, you don't believe, we don't think that there is absolute or proper democracy.
Elizabeth said something important. She said the power vested in the electorate. Well, knowledge is power. If we have no idea what's going on, if we have no idea of what's been done, the reasons for doing and who's doing it, then we can't make an educated choice. And the reason
what do you mean?
Well, we can't. If we don't know what is going on, if we don't know in whose interest our world is being run, in whose interest the decisions are made, what information is used to make these decisions, if we don't know what's going on, if there are all these secrets, there's political secrets, business secrets, all this kind of stuff that we don't have access to, how, therefore, can we make an educated choice about all those who are going to govern in our name? It just doesn't work. And the reason why people are becoming detached from the political system is because they're becoming sophisticated. In that you get political parties, they'll make all the promises under the sun, when they're out of power.
But it's incumbent upon you. You have choice. There are a lot of political parties that will come. It is incumbent upon you to do your own due diligence and form your own opinion as to which of the political parties you are in for.
Yeah, but what you find is that you vote for a political party that makes all kinds of promises, things are going to get, things are going to get better, all this kind of stuff. And what happens is that it's just more of the same. I mean, when the Labour Party came in and there was that song, things can only get better, things can get better, whatever. And then immediately they announced that they were going to stick to the Conservative Party spending plans for the next 2 years. So, that was and it's business as usual. I mean, political parties, the mainstream political parties, seek to administer capitalism. And capitalism can only be administered in one way, and that is in the interests of those that own capital. That's why it's called capitalism. Now, to attempt to run the capitalist, or to claim that you can run the capitalist system, as political parties do, in the interest of working people, is like claiming you can run an abattoir in the interest of the animals it processes. It can't be done.
Now, let's look at the bill itself. That we vesting our interest once again in Danny, SPGP, candidate for, let's say, Dartford, contesting alongside Elizabeth. Yeah. And Elizabeth wins. Yeah. You automatically become a constituent, a member of constituency. And you
only if I live there.
Yes. If you live there, you are registered voter at Dartford. And you think Elizabeth promised people in the United Kingdom that their party, UKIP, will make sure that they will cap immigration, European Union migration, and still they couldn't. You want to recall her. Isn't it your right as somebody who voted, or even if you did not vote Elizabeth, you live in that constituency. So democratically, you have a say as to what should happen to Elizabeth. Does that have to do with capitalism and socialism?
If say for argument's sake that was the case, and you could have another election.
Yes, definitely. If she's recorded,
I can't see any problem with that. But that's not what our party campaigns for. Our party is a socialist party, and as a socialist party, it campaigns for socialism. It's not interested in the way capitalism is run. It's not interested in the minutiae. Elizabeth might well be, but you see, Elizabeth isn't a member of a revolutionary party. She's a member of a reformist party.
I think UKIP is not the most revolutionary party.
No, it's a reformist party.
Yes, because they've been able to reform. Their messages are revolutionary, and it has transformed British politics today, that we are getting away from the triangulation of Labour, Conservative, and...
If you could tell me what's revolutionary about UKIP, I'd be interested to hear it.
Yes, we want to get out of Europe. Yes, we want to curb immigration. We want to have Australian point system. Yes, we want to have our NHS. We want to run them. We want to have fairer taxes. We want to reduce the 40p to 35p. They are revolting against everything. John Major has said that they are anti-everything. Former Prime Minister, Mr. Tony Blair, has said that they are nasty and anti-everything. Aren't they revolutionary?
No, they're reformists. What they want to do is they want to reform capitalism the way capitalism is administered. A revolutionary party wants to seek the end of capitalism and have a revolution means a complete change.
They are revolting against the status quo. Elizabeth and her party are revolting against them.
It doesn't necessarily mean revolution.
All right. Now, Elizabeth,
yes,
what
Adam.
is the stand of UKIP on the recall bill?
Oh, as I said earlier, Adam, UKIP has had a platform policy of supporting recall of MPs from the outset. So since 2010, the 2010 general election, UKIP has supported recall on 20% of the electorate getting together and putting a petition together to remove the MP. Now, why we say 20%? Because we don't want MPs perhaps to be bullied by particularly aggressive single-issue minority groups. We want it to be a broad spread within the electorate to show that there is genuine discontent with that MP, if it's their policy or lack of policy or the service they're giving to the constituency. So many of the MPs arguing against the recall of MPs bill use that as an argument, saying that it shouldn't be allowed to go ahead because so many MPs would be held hostage to aggressive minority single-issue parties. However, 20% of the electorate, or indeed 10% as per the bill, would prevent that. Now, UKIP has always been very, very supportive of complete real recall. We were wholly supportive of Zach Goldsmith's amendment bill in October, and Cameron promised recall pre-general election. He promised this with a view to appearing real and relevant. He's neither. He's sort of backed off from that, and the offer that's given to the public now raises expectations and gives none. It's pathetic. It's a waste of time. Why bother?
But Elizabeth, let's look at the recall bills. Some people within a constituency, if minority and influential disagrees with the MP, can they lobby this 20% that you are talking about, the constituents, to mull or destroy the democratic process of a particular constituency, whereby an MP who is doing his job very well in Parliament could be recalled on any tangible reason?
Well, the recall of MPs bill states that the petition has to be supported by 10%. So what, the average London constituency, what is about 70, 80,000 people? So we're talking about 7,000, 8,000. I think it unlikely.
At this advent of the social media?
Well, again, I don't think people are that gullible. People do come to their own conclusions about issues.
If we are not all that gullible, we wouldn't believe in going to Iraq, Afghanistan and Syria. It's just putting a spin on issue.
Adam, we don't believe in that. If you remember last summer, there was a very testing debate as to whether there should be military intervention in Syria. Many people were out in the street protesting against that, and I was one of them. And as a result of significant political pressure, we did not have such intervention in Syria. And Adam, please remember that in 2001 and 2003, when we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, it wasn't my vote. I wasn't asked. It was nothing to do with me. I'm sure it was nothing to do with you. Our MPs just crazily went off. And because of actions like this really supports true recall of MPs, so that your MP can't go running off and tie you into a long-term war which is unwinnable, which has no exit strategy. So I think it's a good thing. Now, the UKIP policy was suggesting 20% of the electorate could get together. So if you've got a constituency which is roughly 70 to 80,000, it would be 20% of the people getting together there. Zach Goldsmith was pretty radical with his amendments, and he was saying 5%, but I think probably about 10-20% will prevent any sort of really aggressive single-issue minority people perhaps attacking the MP for not siding with their whatever.
While you still tune in to Voice of Africa Radio, it's 32 minutes after 7 o'clock. I am in the studio with Danny Lambert, SPGB, here with me this evening discussing these important issues. Elizabeth Jones, Deputy Chairwoman SADC, and also a prospective parliamentary candidate for Dartford, is also here discussing this important issue. Danny, democracy and power sharing and giving somebody your will.
Giving somebody
your will, your power to discuss to represent you. We have to have the basics of the checks and balances, that if you give me your trust, I wouldn't betray your trust by not seeking second opinion from you. We know in Westminster there is a clan, the family. They can do whatever they want to do. That's why MPs can fiddle with their accounts in Westminster. They can fiddle with their rent. They will have a second home here, whereas they are paying for their own home and the taxpayer is paying for them. What do you think MPs should, the constituents, people within the constituency should do if this bill if they pass it to become a law? Should we try some of these things first by some of the conduct of the MPs, that if, for instance, an MP it's been alleged that MP has molested, or MP has fiddled with the account, or MP has something to hide in his coffers, gone to court and he's been cleared, should a constituent say, yes, because you are representing us, we did not want you to be a homosexual, for instance, in court, and you've done it, you went to court even though you were cleared, so we don't need you. We did not want you to fiddle with the account, so that they say people in Dartford, we have an MP who fiddles with his account, therefore, even if you are cleared, we don't want you. Should we try some of these things?
I mean, to be honest, Adam, I'm not particularly interested. As I said before, you see, when we talk about democracy, I'm not interested in giving over my power.
But you do.
This is what we do in our particular society. Well, I want to see society change. I see it as the only responsible way to deal with social responsibility is to share it, not to give it over to leaders or to representatives.
How do we share it, Danny?
How do we share it?
Yes.
Well, by sharing knowledge, by sharing our understanding of the world, by debating and by discussing.
But we already have debate and discussions all over.
Yeah, but what we do, what happens in our society is people are very, very politically unsophisticated, in the sense that they don't understand what capitalism is, they don't understand how the world runs and in whose interest it runs. So therefore, when they go and vote, which they're doing in fewer numbers because they're being alienated from the political process because it doesn't seem to make any difference. When they go and vote, they're voting on poor information, on the lack of a big, clear, coherent picture that they can make sense of. They're essentially believing plausible politicians' promises. That's the problem with our politics.
So what do you suggest? What do you suggest politics, the dynamics of politics should be?
Well, what people should do, what people must do, if we're to get out of this mess, is to recognise their power as working people, because as they do all the work.
But you need somebody to represent you as a working class man.
Yeah, you do. You need. Well, you don't. You need people. You need people you can delegate that can go to parliaments wherever and put your point of view and express your interest and work in your interest.
From what I'm hearing from you, or from my understanding, those that has been delegated to represent us in the parliament are not the right kind of people that you would want them to represent.
If the Socialist Party had members elected to Parliament, they would go as delegates.
But why don't you have members elected? Because maybe your message is not appealing.
Well, I mean, the thing is that our message isn't appealing because our message is connected to what went on in the Soviet Union. I mean, when people think of socialism, they think of North Korea, they think of Albania, they think of China, or as against Soviet Union.
We are now running to China for money.
Well, yeah,
so
but
socialism wouldn't be bad, is it?
Yeah, but I mean, all these countries have never ever been socialist, but they associate socialism with these repressive red fascist regimes. Nothing but nothing like a socialist society. So that's one of the things to get over this prejudice. That's mainly it.
Well, this is it. You're still tuned into Voice of Africa Radio, 38 minutes after 7. Danny and Elizabeth are in the studio.
Adam, may I
me.
just make a point about recall of MPs?
Yes.
Sorry to butt in there. If we look abroad, British Columbia in Canada has had recall since 1993. 6 cantons of Switzerland have recall. And America has had recall since 1631. Even Venezuela has recall.
But Elizabeth, are they practicing the recall? How many of these countries have recalled the within which constituencies or Senate a senator has been recalled?
Well, in America they've had 2 governors recalled in 1921 and 2003. I'm sure they've had many, many minor politicians, I presume the equivalent of local councillors, recalled. They've had, in British Columbia, they've had 22 recall efforts. No one has actually been recalled yet, but 22 times in Canada. They've gone through that process. And what normally happens is when recall process is begun, many of these politicians actually resign rather than go through the ignominy of a recall vote and perhaps losing their position through recall. So it does trigger resignation.
But it is a hallmark of this country. If an MP thinks that his action wasn't fit,
yes,
he wasn't right, they automatically resign.
Well, they don't, do they? How many times have we had the public apology where the MP has had their expenses uncovered, their love child uncovered, the rent boy uncovered, and they simply go into the public forum before a blaze of press and say, I'm so sorry.
System is fair, whereby some of these MPs are sent to prison.
If it goes to that extreme, yes. But in order to get to that extreme, obviously takes a high level of proof. Between 0 and, let's say, 100, where we're actually going through the criminal justice system, is a whole area, a grey area of inappropriate conduct, which you as a electorate may well disapprove. And you as a part of the electorate may actually know this politician and may know what their personality tendencies are like. And I thought, yeah, I know him. That's exactly the kind of thing he'd do. I thought that at the time, and now I want him out. And you can't get him out. But in Canada, Switzerland, USA and Venezuela, you have that option.
Well, Danny.
Well, yeah, the thing is, I mean, we've got to look at those countries that Elizabeth just itemised. It's, it's not exactly wonderful examples of democracy. It's just the same as everywhere else. But before we go on, I mean, some of your listeners might be confused from what I stand for, or what our party stands for. So I'd like to make that clear. Our party stands for a system of society where the means for producing and distributing wealth are owned and democratically controlled by and in the interest of the whole community. We hold that the natural and industrial resources of our planet, planet Earth, are the common heritage of all human beings. And we see that as irrefutable. So therefore we live in a society that doesn't recognise that. So therefore our society, it can only work against our interest, the majority of the majority's interest. So we're a society, we're an organisation that democratically seeks to change society from one a production purely for the benefit of the few, the profit of the few, to a society where we produce only for use, to benefit the whole of the human community, or the whole of the human family.
Well, this is it. It's 42 minutes after 7 o'clock. We would, before we take on to the tax cut, Elizabeth,
yes.
The recall is at the heart of the UKIP. You want to see this bill becomes a law.
No, we don't like this bill at all. Let me make quite clear, this recall of MP's bill, which was sponsored by Nick Clegg, is not real recall. It's simply the veneer of democracy. It's raising expectations which can't be fulfilled. All it's saying is basically, if your MP has been subject to a prison sentence, if your MP has been suspended for 21 sitting days or 28 days, then, lo and behold, the Speaker can then contact your local election officer. And
but isn't this a step in the right direction? Isn't this giving you the leeway to also say that having got this as a law, if MP does something that the constituents think is not right, they can then petition the Speaker of Parliament to call for...
I'm sorry, Adam, it's just not good enough. Cameron promised recall in 2010. This is just not good enough. This is simply a fudge. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of everyone's time and energy. It's a total fudge.
Well, we would turn our attention to the tax cut. On this issue, the recall would be looked into if UKIP becomes the coalition partner. I think, Elizabeth, you would propose that. Clegg, Nigel Farage would propose that in case you become the kingmaker come the election 2015, you would want to see a proper recall bill.
Totally. Yes, of course. We want power to the people.
Well, power to the people. In May 2010...
Knowledge to the people.
Knowledge to the people. In May 2010, the coalition government announced that in its first budget, it would introduce a substantial increase in personal tax allowance, a first step to its longer-term objective to raise the allowance to 10,000. All taxpayers are eligible for this tax-free allowance, which represents the amount of income someone may earn before paying any income tax. Elizabeth.
Yes, Adam.
Now, the tax allowance is going to cost the Exchequer 9 billion if the 10,000 tax allowance is introduced in 2014-2015. Do you think that 2.2 million people who will be out of the tax net will help this situation, this country? And do you agree with the 10,000 tax allowance?
This is resulting from Cameron's recent conference speech. We say that his talk on tax cuts is a form of Tourette's. It's absolute rubbish. It's unfounded.
Why is it rubbish?
Okay, because number one, he says he's going to give tax cuts to 30 million. 30 million actually represents the entire working population. It's an absolute nonsense because many of these people are earning below 10,000 and not paying tax in the first instance. So a big chunk of those 30 million aren't paying tax anyway. They're out the picture. Right, okay. Only 15% of the taxpayers are paying the top rate tax, 40% anyway, so they're out of the picture. Now what he's offering to lift the basic income tax allowance from about the 10,000 to the 12,500 in 2020. In 6 years' time. What do you think that money's going to be worth then? What do you think 12,500 is probably going to be worth the equivalent of 10,000 anyway? So that's a con. The next thing he's saying, I'm going to lift the 40% tax ban from 42,000 to 50,000 from 2020. Again, 6 years' time. What is that money going to be worth then? It's a total con. He said this is going to cost 7.2 billion. It's just nonsense. It's going to be lifted up anyway through inflation. So the offer he's suggesting is not as good as it seems. It's not a tax cut, it's a tax con. Okay, now in the 19th of September 2014, the Institute of Fiscal Studies said that to achieve the forecast levels of borrowing without more tax increases and without welfare cuts, the government's going to have to cut spending by 46 billion. He doesn't say how he's going to sustain these tax cuts, where you can't cut money away from one area without taking it from another area. It's just absolute nonsense.
But they are going to cut the tax, and then they will increase VAT to 20%, which will generate over 13 billion to the Exchequer's coffers. And then the tax cut will be 9 billion. So wouldn't this be better for the British economy?
No, I don't think it's going to be better for the British economy at all. So instead of having staggered income tax, everyone's going to pay VAT, which is basically a flat rate tax, which so many, particularly of the left, complain about. And in any event, a big chunk of that's going to go to the EU. The VAT is more or less the EU tax. And the whole purpose, what the whole purpose of government, basically, and the economy, is to try and create as many full-time, reasonably well-paid jobs as possible to sustain the economy and to organise productive investment into our future. We want money ploughed into higher R&D, more research and development. We want super-fast broadband. We want to be very 21st century.
But how
country.
do we get that if the state does not have the money to support that? Let me go to Danny, and I'll come back to you. Danny, tax cut. People will be, the working class, which you represent, will be able to work if you are having more than 10, if you have 10,000 a year, you are not going to pay tax at all. And that would also cushion you. You'll be able to pay your rent and utilities but it is going to cost the state 9 billion to do that. And the state will also gradual process increase the VAT, which we will have 13 billion to do the minus and plus to keep the economy going. Do you agree with the tax threshold of 10,000?
Well, what you got to remember is that tax is only a burden on the employing class. In a sense, working class people do not pay tax. Working class people get their wages. Now, if there's a tax cut, essentially what that means, it's a wage rise. If taxes are imposed, it's a wage cut. As I say, our tax is paid at source, us workers. So it's not so essentially again, it's not a working class issue. As for trying to again, advising the government or talking about how the government should arrange the poverty of working people and to administer the poverty of working people. Our party's not involved in that. What our party wants to do is abolish the poverty of working people by, instead of having a society...
Danny, how do we abolish poverty of working people? Give me 3 reasons.
Very, very simple.
Yes.
I once listened to a lady giving the Reef lecture on Radio 4 many years ago, about 10, 12 years ago. And she defined poverty. She said she was going to define poverty. And I was really interested. I thought, I'm very keen to hear this. And she said poverty can be defined in the 21st century as the denial of ability. If all the poor people on this planet had access to the productive technology that we human beings have developed socially, collectively throughout our history, we wouldn't be poor. But that technology that's been collectively, socially developed throughout our history is privately owned. So therefore, and it's used for the benefit of those people who own it, not us. So the poor are poor because
then if everybody is going to have it, where do we classify intellectual property? If I have my ability developed, that my great-grandchildren will be feeding on what I left for them.
Yeah, but then they would be parasites because they wouldn't be working for themselves. They wouldn't be producing. They would just be living off something they've not contributed to. Now you see, all wealth is socially produced. All human beings are socially produced. We don't produce ourselves. So therefore, if everything, including ourselves, are socially produced, then we should be socially owned and socially administered. Intellectual property is a myth.
Elizabeth,
Yes,
now, on the tax cut,
Yes.
I think the leader of your party is saying that it's good, and even though it will cost the state money, but if UK is out of European Union,
Yes.
you'll be able to save some money.
Yes.
And if you stop the H2
Yeah.
project, you'll be able to save some money,
Yes.
which will be able to use to cushion the economy. So why are you saying that what Cameron and Osborne are proposing for the 10,000 on the VAT is not, it's a con?
It's a total con. I just checked now on the internet. I was a bit cheeky whilst you were talking to Danny there. And on the 15th of November, David Cameron denied ever saying he was planning to increase VAT on anything. However, looking back in January 2014, one of his advisors proposed that VAT should be increased to 33%. I hope and pray that the Conservatives do want to increase VAT by 33% because there's a guaranteed electoral collapse for that party. Good. Okay. Now, the reason why we are opposed to it, because it's unsustainable. The way he's expressed it is misleading. It's all very well promising an increase in the threshold to 12,500, but if that's only coming in 2020, the rise in the retail price index or consumer price index will reduce that significantly. Also, the government has failed. There are more people in jobs now, but they're about earning 6 to 10% less than they did in 2010. Many people are earning well below the tax threshold and not paying tax. The government is subsidising employers with tax credit for low earners. Cameron has not spelt out to us at all what is going to be sacrificed to pay for these changes and who's going to bear the consequence. He's not told us where the money's coming from to underpin all of this and who's going to bear the brunt, because it's not going to be
the
him.
The Exchequer is going to lose 9 billion out of tax because 2.2 million people are not going to pay taxes because they earn below the threshold.
But
and VAT is going to go to 20%, which of course will generate...
It's already
13,
20%,
yes,
Adam.
which is generating 13 billion.
Adam,
therefore, we can use that to...
but Adam, VAT is already 20%.
20%, yes.
Cameron has said in 15th of November 2014 that there will be no VAT increase, and the research I did didn't show that that was actually a solid Tory plan. Now, it seems to me that the main beneficiaries of his tax plans will be those who are earning well above the average income. And he never doesn't mention national insurance. It's all very well raising the tax threshold. What are you going to do about people's payment toward national insurance? You know, that's not explained. So he hasn't costed it. He hasn't explained how all this money is going to be underpinned, what sacrifices are going to be made to sustain these tax cuts, and who's going to bear the consequence. Now, UKIP policy is that we would increase the tax threshold to 13,000, and we want to grossly simplify the current tax system and perhaps amalgamate national insurance. National insurance needs a complete overhaul anyway. But we have costed it. We would be leaving the EU. That costs us £55 million a day. We would be reducing foreign aid from the £11 billion per annum it is now to probably about £1 billion, so it's for just humanitarian aid only. And of course, we won't be pursuing the HS2 project. And we are going to have a very good look at local authority expenditure. There should be not one person in this country employed by a local authority or a university.
We all know that the HS2 project is going to boost the economy of Great Britain.
Well, we don't know that. That is
what they are
controversial.
telling us.
Well, of course, that's what they're telling us. That's a controversial issue. Also, within local authority and within universities, there should be not one person earning more than David Cameron.
Why?
There's no justification whatsoever. Can you explain to me why the CEO of Lambert, where I live, I think it's Derek Anderson, why is he earning about £200,000 per annum?
Maybe he's doing very good. He's looking after the resources and managing it well.
So he's managing a little area like Lambeth. David Cameron is managing the entire country with all the strains that he's experienced this year. I'm not a fan of David Cameron, but I can understand that he has gone through a lot of strain this year. He's had the Scottish referendum, we've had the issue with Syria, we've had the issue with ISIL, he's had the conflicts with the EU. He hasn't handled them, of course, the way UKIP would want him to, but nevertheless, I understand he has engaged in a lot of conflict and stress. He's earning about $166,000. I'm sorry, it's not sustainable. You work for a local authority, you're not there to make a fortune.
Using that logic, if you want better politicians, pay them more. offer more money if you want better politicians, because that's what, that's the logic of that. Now, look, let's get down to basics. I state this, and I stand to be contradicted on this, that the natural and industrial resources of planet Earth are the common heritage of all human beings. Now, any contradictions here tonight on that? No. Well, you see, what Elizabeth wants to do, she wants to go into Parliament with UKIP as a majority, which is the ambition, and manage, therefore, this huge theft, this huge robbery of our common heritage.
Which heritage are you talking about?
I'm talking about the natural and industrial resources of the common heritage of all human beings.
They want to be there and manage it properly for you.
Capitalism denies that. Capitalism, we have, as you asked me for the definition of poverty is the denial of ability. The poor people are poor because they don't own the means of production. Rich people are rich because they do. And you can't have rich people without poor people. So what politicians like Elizabeth here want to do is they want to administer this gross, inhuman theft.
Elizabeth, is it true that you want to look over gross, inhuman theft of our ability?
Of our common heritage.
Yeah, our common heritage. Is that what the politicians intend doing, or UKIP intend doing?
I can't speak for politicians across the world. I'm sure there are many politicians, as we all have heard of the phrase kleptocracy.
Yes.
Many of the African dictators have been described as kleptocrats and have gleefully stolen billions from their country, knowingly done so, and enjoyed it. No, that is certainly not the aim of UKIP. The aim of UKIP is to make this country the best it possibly can for all the people living here.
Well, you still tune into Voice of Africa Radio. We would be ending the program soon. And before we go, Elizabeth, your final advice on the bill of the recall bill, and also the tax threshold of 10,000, whereby people will still be paying their national insurance.
Exactly. My view of the recall bill, waste of time. My view of the tax cuts, a complete con.
Well, Danny Lambert, SPGB, your final advice?
My final advice is to take a look at some paleoarchaeology, some basic genetics, and find out that we're all members of one human family. Now, if a family is to function as a family should, then the ethic is followed from each according to ability to each according to need.
Thank you very much.
So therefore, we can look at our society now. We know immediately why it's so dysfunctional.
Thank you very much for coming this evening on the show. It's been a wonderful show this evening. I thank you very much for being part of this program. However, homophobic is not anything that we are against, and we are not against any sexual or any sexual orientation. We support it. Whatever you do is your own. News 10 at next.